Welcome to Roanoke Remembered. Today, host John Garland talks with Northwest Hardware owner Charlie Overstreet about Williamson Road and the proposed road diet. So sit back and enjoy episode 4 of Roanoke Remembered.
Father's Day's coming up, and a few of us fathers make corny dad jokes.
Corny dad jokes?
Yeah, and I would like to share some with you.
Okay, let's go for it.
Why did the coffee taste like dirt?
I have no idea.
It was ground 2 minutes ago.
I like that one.
Sherry, why did the chicken cross the road?
Was it to get to the other side?
It wanted to show the possum it could be done. Where do basketball players go to get new uniforms?
I have no idea.
New Jersey.
Okay.
I asked my dog, what is 2 minus 2? He said, nothing. Where do boats go when they get sick?
I got it. To the
What
boat,
is it?
To the boat dock.
Very good.
Very good.
I was going to tell a time travel joke, but you guys did not like it.
Well, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Where should everybody go to get their Father's Day presents?
To the grilling store.
The grilling store?
Yes.
To get their grill from?
Yes, Northwest Ace Hardware.
What kind would they get if they got that?
They would choose between a gas, a pellet, and a charcoal, which means Weber, Traeger, Big Green Egg.
I knew the answer to that.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Well, Charlie, we're here for our 4th episode of Roanoke Remembered, and I sure appreciate you coming to participate. And you're our featured guest today, and there's a reason for that, because of what we're going to talk about. But before I get into what we're going to talk about, which is going to be Williamson Road, but one particular piece of Williamson Road, I want to make sure everybody knows who you are, because I know who you are, Sherry knows who you are, but there are a couple people maybe that don't know who you are. But if you turn your shirt just a little bit there and read Northwest Ace Hardware, this is the owner of 15 Northwest Ace Hardware across the state of Virginia and North Carolina. And of course, the best known one, the anchor store, is on Williamson Road.
Yes.
And Charlie's been going to Williamson Road since he was a little tyke, because he worked there when he was little. But did you actually work down here at this one at one point?
I got one summer in at this location. We're on 604 11th Street right now. That's where our hardware store was. And John, this is a little bit interesting. My father was a big thinker. And when he opened this hardware store on 11th Street in Roanoke in 1947, he was thinking big. So he named the store Northwest Hardware to encompass the whole northwest section of the city, instead of naming it 11th Street Hardware.
Well, that was good thinking.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is we're Northwest Hardware to this very day, and we're not even in the northwest section of the city.
Right. You're in Northeast.
Yes, I are.
Well, one of the comments that I made to you before we sat down to talk was the fact that when your dad did that, there was a lot more hardware stores across the city, and I guess they were pretty specific to neighborhoods, because every neighborhood you went into had a hardware store. So it would be pretty common, I guess, to name it after a street, because that's where they were. So their business was the people right around this area. So that had a different meaning back then when it's like now and they're not everywhere.
Just to give you a point of reference, when we opened our hardware store in Benton, Virginia, we bought McCarty's Hardware. When we opened that store in 1992, I looked in the yellow pages, and there were 12 other hardware stores in the yellow pages for this area. 12.
And I told you that I felt like you were the last survivor, and a healthy survivor to boot, because you made, I guess your dad made a decision a long time ago to team up with True Value,
Yes.
which brought products to you at maybe a little cheaper price than your
Yes.
competitors. You've since changed to Ace Hardware, but you're still aligned with a national distributor. But
Yes.
you're local, your employees are local, ownership's local, and so that's a big plus.
Yes, Ace is a national hardware wholesaler whom we buy our hardware from and pay a membership fee to, and they give us excellent advertising, and they give us a few ideas as to what will sell in their market because it sells in other markets.
Ace is the place, right?
It sure is. Helpful hardware folks.
Was that John Madden that used to say that?
He sure did.
Okay.
And there's a pretty blonde-headed girl named Summers that did that too.
I remember her too. Well, we're not here to talk about hardware stores, but I did want to make sure that everybody knew who you were and that you were Ace Hardware and that you started out on this street. People don't know where we're at for this Roanoke Remembered, but we are, like you said, at 601 11th Street, which is right next door, a couple doors down from where in 1947 your dad started.
Yes,
Northwest
that's so
Hardware.
true.
And so you're familiar with this neighborhood. You're familiar with the neighborhood on Williamson Road because you've been there since 1969, so you spent a lot of time on Williamson Road, even though you're a Case Spring boy instead of a William Fleming boy like myself. And last week we talked about Williamson Road because that's where I grew up, so we talked a lot about Williamson Road. So I wanted to further that discussion today about Williamson Road, and in particular about the road itself, because that's been pretty controversial. You may remember I was on city council back in 2016, and one of the things I started going to was the Williamson Road Area Business Association. And controversial back then, that was in 2016, was, okay, what are we going to do to Williamson Road? That was a big question because, as you know, nothing's been done to Williamson Road for a long, long time. And here we are in 2024, it's still a big question, still a big discussion, controversy. What are we going to do on Williamson Road? So before we talk about what can be done on Williamson Road, in your opinion and my opinion, and get some thoughts out on that, I wanted to see what maybe memories you've had of Williamson Road. We talked a lot about that last week, but what are your kind of memories of Williamson Road, having been there since 1969?
I remember Williamson Road was more vital then. And I'm gonna say, if I wanted an ice cream cone, I went to Baskin Robbins. If I wanted a pizza, I went across the street to Davis Pizza. If I wanted a repair part for an electronic device, I went to Radio Shack. If I wanted a punch to put a hole in leather, I could go to Tandy Leather. There was a fabric store on Williamson Road. There were specialty businesses up and down Williamson Road that would draw people to them because they had unique products.
Yeah, every one you just named are ones I remember too, but of course are not there now. I remember where every one of them were.
And also at that time, there was a big box retailer on Williamson Road. Do you remember the name of it?
Sears?
Roebuck and Company. And back then it was Sears Town, Williamson Road.
I saw
across the street was a Western Auto store.
That's right. And the Peoples and the Roses.
And down the street was a Moore's Superstore building supply store.
Yeah, right there.
Williamson Road was more vital when it comes to retail businesses in the 70s than it is now.
And I saw on Facebook yesterday, someone was asking, was there ever a Krispy Kreme on Williamson Road?
And what did they say?
They didn't know because
Really?
it's been gone so long. So
Okay, there was an electronics store called Avec Electronics.
Yeah.
And right next door to that was a Krispy Kreme donut shop, which has since been purchased by Bergman Chevrolet and torn down.
Right. So this is a question. Do you remember how many bakeries there were on Williamson Road?
I can only name bowls.
Oh, you're two off then.
I'm listening.
Michael's Bakery.
Okay,
You don't remember Michael's Bakery?
I do not.
Just a little further up,
Okay,
just past 10th Street, Johnson's Bakery.
do not.
You know where the Hardee's is on Williamson Road?
Definitely.
Oh, right beside that was Johnson's Bakery.
That's awesome, man.
There were a few places to go.
I remember talking to Ralph Bowles from Bowles Bake Shop, who got up at 4 a.m. to get his baking done, his work day started. And I said, Ralph, I guess you get used to that. Ralph said, Charlie, you never get used to it.
You know what else he did with his time?
I'm listening.
He was on city council.
He was.
And his wife was on city council.
Okay.
And they're the only married couple that were ever on city council. I don't think they were on the same time, but they were both on city
That
council.
is neat. That is cool out of me, though.
Of course, if you've been from Williamson Road too, you remember Connie Bowles, and Connie Bowles was my class at William Fleming, graduated in 1970. So.
And something else I remember, there were churches up and down the road that were full.
Well, now they're for sale.
Now they're empty.
Well, some of them for sale. Just the Huntington Court Methodist, of course, just sold. Air League Baptist just sold. I guess you remember Air League Hardware too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right up there at the corner. Used to be a community village, like every 8 or 10 blocks along Williamson Road.
All right, let's go back, since it's hardware, to Air League Hardware for a moment. Was it very close to airport hardware?
Well, maybe we're talking about the same place. I always called it Air League Hardware, but it was right there.
At Air League Court?
Right there at the intersection of Hirschberger
Uh-huh.
and Williamson Road, right there across.
Where the Firestone is. Or
So-
a bank. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of good memories about Williamson Road. Were you one of the, did Case Spring kids come out to Williamson Road to go up and down?
Well, one of my classmates played football for Cave Spring. His name is Doug Cross, and he went to Crossroads Mall to watch a movie. And when he came back out, he was driving a Ford Falcon. The top to his convertible Ford Falcon had been sliced.
Well, this
But he did wear his leather jacket, so maybe that was his
So you
mistake.
think I was a William Fleming person?
I would never think that.
We didn't do that back in the 60s. We didn't do that in the 60s. Maybe in the 70s. You're a little younger than I am. Well, let's talk a little bit about Williamson Road. One of the things I brought out last week was Williamson Road past where William Fleming used to be, which is now Breckenridge.
Yes.
When my parents moved there in the late 40s, was dirt. It was literally,
Really?
it was dirt. Of course, it was all farmland before that. The area where I was Epperly Farm. Mr. Epperly owned the farmhouse that stayed there until it got torn down to build some condos. But so it's obviously not dirt now. So they improved it at some point in time, and they got smarter, I guess, at one point in time, because the further you go out Williamson Road past where your hardware store is, the wider it gets.
Uh-huh.
By the time you get out to Hirschberg,
Uh-huh.
it's very wide.
Uh-huh.
So when they made the improvements, which they have made some improvements, which is the only improvements I can think of on Williamson Road between Hirschberger and back down to Breckenridge. They put the trees in the middle with
Uh-huh.
the median, and it stayed 4 lanes, and it was room enough for a turning lane in the middle too.
Yes.
So it's actually 5 lanes wide because it's wider.
Uh-huh.
But when you get down to your area, it's skinnier.
Yes, it is.
So one of the things that they're trying to figure out is, well, how do we get all the stuff that we need on the street on a smaller width? So, and when they say needs, they're saying they need sidewalks for pedestrian. They're saying they need a travel lane for bicycles, and they need whatever they need for cars. So
Mhm.
the thing has become controversial, and I'm not sure where the name came from, but it's called road diet.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether that came from the people who didn't like the fact that the city was proposing to make the lane smaller.
Are you saying people don't like diets, John?
Well, I try often, but
What do you call someone who cannot stay on a diet?
so I think what you're saying then is it came from the people who didn't like it, called it a diet, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Someone who cannot stay on a diet is a deserter.
Well, I've been a deserter many times then. You've probably never had to go on a diet as skinny as you are, right?
true. So John, going back to, you remember a time when Williamson Road was not even paved?
Well, I do not personally remember.
Okay.
My parents moved there in 1947, same
Uh-huh.
time your dad started a hardware store here.
It was
I wasn't-
paved here.
I wasn't born until 52,
Okay.
and my first recollection, it was paved.
Okay.
So I'm going back to my parents' days.
If you'll come to Northwest Hardware on Williamson Road level, we have 2 levels.
Right.
As you're exiting the store, if you look up, there's a photograph of the Woodson Grocery, which is the current location, the current building Northwest is in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and looking out from that photo is Williamson Road, and it is, when that picture was taken, dirt, unpaved.
What year would that have been?
It must have been before they paved it.
Good answer. So my dad, he retired in 1973, and one of the ways that he took time for his retirement is he liked to fix things. So he was down at Northwest Hardware at least a couple times a week.
I'm liking what I'm hearing.
He got to know your staff down there on a first name basis. I mean, I think he ended up going down there not to buy something, but just to talk to some of your salespeople. So he probably kept them from working, but
In the late 70s, early 80s, that particular location built up to 60 employees. We run it with 15 employees now. It was busier back then.
really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting back on the road now, let me explain to you what the city, which now you already know this, but this is for Roanoke remembered people that don't understand, what the city's recommending and what some of the business owners don't like.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what the city is proposing, right now it's 4 lanes. They're proposing 3 lanes, so it'll be 1 lane of traffic going each way, then there'll be a center lane for turning lane, either way you're turning, and there'll be pullouts for buses wherever the bus stops are. So, and what they're saying, and I know you've heard this before too, is the reason they get money to do improvements primarily from VDOT and from the feds is to improve safety. So what they're saying is the 3-lane option is safer, so they can get funds to be able to do it. So tell me your reaction to that, and maybe the reaction of some other business owners.
If this were a debate, I could rebut each one of those. If this were a debate, I could rebut each one of those.
Well, let's make it a debate.
Okay. Let's start with 4 lanes. We've got 4 lanes now. Under the proposal, we would in essence reduce to 2 lanes because there's only 2 north and south lanes left. So I think if you cut the road in half, you're hurting the road to almost the effect of destroying the road. That's 1. 2, I do not see the need to reduce the size of Williamson Road, nor to spend $50 million on it. What I see happening is $50 million of,
I'm not sure $50 million will do
would
it.
even start. Federal and state money, $50 million, and it's not costing the city hardly anything. They're tasked with spending that, and their idea is to hurt Williamson Road by spending it. It's the opposite of what I would do. I would make it more car friendly, not less. I would work at going to 5 lanes, the length of the road, so similarly to West Main Street in Salem, and make it so that cars.
You got a store there, don't you?
Yes, I do. Make it so that cars can go north and south on Williamson Road unfettered. So what we have here is we don't have a need, but we do have money. So let's figure out a way to spend the money. And I think it's a wasteful way to spend it.
Well, they don't have the money yet. That's one of the problems.
Yeah, you're right. Continuing with my argument, this is getting pretty deep and it's getting into cause and effect. The cause of the safety issue is homelessness. And Williamson Road has more homeless people than we have had in the past. And homeless people often are mentally ill or addicted to drugs or alcohol, and they're not in their right frame of mind, and they're putting themselves in front of moving vehicles and getting run over. So my feeling is, if we want to make Williamson Road safer, then we address the homeless problem. And I know that's outside the box thinking, but in my mind, one of my friends is one of the people that died. In my mind, the problem is we're accepting the homeless situation, and in so doing, we're having more pedestrian fatalities and accidents on Williamson Road. And oh, by the way, I'm on Williamson Road every day. The people that are addressing the Williamson Road non-problem, the people that are addressing it are not on Williamson Road every day. And I've looked at the plans. I've looked at the plans to reduce/destroy Williamson Road. And get this, where the city offices are, the old Sears building, they're not touching that. Oh, it's the rest of the road they're touching. It's the rest of the road they're touching. The part that affects the city, we'll leave it like it is. The part that affects Northwest Hardware, we're going to smash it from 4A to 2.
The first phase was up at Hirschberger and it came down to Breckenridge or thereabouts. The next phase, I think, starts there, is that right, and goes south?
I just looked at the total plan. I didn't break it down in phases, but I did notice that near the Orange Avenue intersection, there's no changes.
I didn't know that. Are you familiar with the changes they implemented on Brandon Avenue when they took that?
As a matter of fact, my dry cleaning guy was named Mitch Wheeler.
Wheelers,
Yeah, and I asked Mitch, I said, hey man, they're getting ready to do the Williamson Road, what they did here, how you like it? Mitch, I hate it, Charlie.
Is that,
okay.
So that was after implementation?
Yeah, that's this year.
So, I guess, do you think there's just a fundamental difference in thinking between the business owners that are on Williamson Road and the designers that would be designing the improvements?
Yes, the fundamental difference is between the people that are there and the people that are on the
All right,
outside.
well, let me tell you what they would say, and you respond to that.
Good.
What they would say is that it goes back to safety issue, and I understand what you're saying about the homeless, and that's certainly an issue across the city. But what they would say would be, it's all about safety. We get our money about safety. What we're going to propose is things that are going to improve safety. So what they would say is a third lane in the middle, which is a turning lane. What that allows you to do is get out of the line of traffic and not have somebody behind you, because, you know, obviously what happens now is if someone turns left, they have to stop, and anybody behind them in the lane has to stop. So it interrupts that one lane of traffic. So that gives them a place to get out of the line of traffic. The other thing is buses. If buses stop on the right-hand lane, then people back up behind them and they try to swerve around the bus. So it's either rear end issues or the issues of trying to get around the other vehicle, or they sideswipe somebody. And so what they're saying is, okay, we're going to eliminate that because we're going to have pullouts for the buses so that they won't clog up the traffic behind it. So you eliminate those two safety issues. They do acknowledge that you'll go slower.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'll go, you know, if you average 35 miles an hour now, you'll average 30 miles an hour after you go to less lanes. But they then would say that that's a safety issue too, because then it's causing everybody to go speed limit.
Yeah, they very much acknowledge that, and as a matter of fact, part of the proposal is to reduce speed limits all up and down Williamson Road. So drive slower, have fewer lanes. So what you're doing is you're creating a bottleneck, and thank goodness for Plantation Road, because everybody that would go north and south on Williamson will now go north and south on Plantation Road.
But what they would say, is they'll just drive slower, get more face time to Northwest Hardware, because it would take them longer to get past your business.
And Northwest Hardware would reply, if it's a bigger hassle to get there, that's a hindrance towards people coming to Northwest Hardware.
But there's no Northwest Hardware on Plantation Road. There's not even a hardware store.
You're not going to make me move, are you?
Maybe you need a 16th location.
I think that...
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Let's use it for instance, if the funding really is based on improved safety, whether you perceive that new changes to be more safe or not, the traffic engineers, they say to make it more safe, we gotta do this. The funding agencies say the only way we're gonna give money to Williamson Road is we improve safety. The only way to improve safety is to do these things that traffic engineers say. Which is better? Do nothing or implement something that you might not like?
I'm going to give a premise here. Currently, Williamson Road is designed for the car. Currently, Williamson Road is designed for the car. It's car-centered, and that's worked and is working well. The safety improvements that they're speaking of are bicycles and pedestrians. So my argument is they're taking the emphasis off of the car and shifting it to other forms of transportation. And I personally, at my age, I ain't walking and I ain't cycling.
Maybe you ought to try it.
I am pickling.
One of the things they used to say at city council, because I rode my bikes up and down Williamson Road all the time when I was a kid. Of course, I had a paper route on Williamson Road. And I told the council members when I was on council that the exact same sidewalks that were there when I was delivering paper in the 60s are still there.
Did you ever get run over?
I did not.
Okay.
The exact same places where there were no sidewalks are still not sidewalks, they're dirt paths. So, no, I didn't get run over, fortunately. So, again, I understand exactly what you said, but if it's no money or money for something you don't like, what do you think will be better?
By far, no money. Leave it alone.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you had this $50 million to spend and you were the guy in control, you can do it whatever you wanted to do, what would you do?
I would start incrementally at Orange Avenue going north.
By social services?
Yeah. And I would expand
Making 3 lanes there?
I would expand it to 4 lanes with a center turn lane, sidewalks on both sides. And
you can only do that where it's wide enough though.
I would
If they did
have to buy land.
If they did it in front of your shop, you'd lose all your parking.
I'd have to buy land.
Where are you gonna buy land?
It has to be adjacent to the current road. And that makes it extremely expensive, but that makes it extremely
They have to buy
desirable.
land in order to expand it.
Yeah.
But what would that do?
Same way you do for
What would that do if you're parking? Your main parking is right in front of your store.
I'd make adjustments.
Okay.
I'd go as far as that 50 million would take us, and then when everybody loved it, they'd clamor for another 50.
What else would you do besides road work?
That's it.
Okay. So
Well, sidewalks.
You do sidewalks.
Yeah, I do sidewalks and center turn lane.
Landscaping. Do you like the landscaping up there going towards Crossroads? You know, that actually killed a person.
Yes, I do, and I did not bring that up on purpose.
Was that a friend of yours?
No, but the guy wrote a letter to the editor because his son hit that curbing,
Right.
lost control of his vehicle and died.
Right.
If that curbing weren't there, he wouldn't have hit the curbing.
That's kind of why I asked you whether you like that concept. So apparently you don't like that concept.
I want the roads to drive on.
Okay.
And I don't want a big wall up that hides my view.
Well, I'm sure one of the things you've noticed as you've gotten older, because I've noticed it, is, and you have kids, and I have kids that are obviously younger than us, and I think your kids are, what, 40s, early 40s?
Tyler's 40, Olivia's 28.
They seem to think differently than we do about things. Do your kids think just like you?
More similarities than they wish to admit.
Well, I forgot to mention that too, that you're the second generation.
Thank you.
The third generation are your 2 sons and your daughter.
Yeah, they're in there
Take care of the
pulling,
business.
working.
So that's a curiosity question for me. Do your 2 sons and daughter, do they think the same way about the road as you do?
They have not challenged me when I run my mouth about it.
Well, they know not to do that, right?
No, they very much are willing to challenge their daddy. Yeah, we're open that way.
So are there still business leaders on Williamson Road that are unlike you and like the 3 lanes?
The only ones that like it are ones that are on Hirschberger Road or or out towards Highlands where it's already 5 lanes. Doesn't bother them at all.
And you know, Williamson Road Area Business Association, at one time, when I was going to the board
Yeah.
meetings back in 2017, they were in favor of the road diet. I don't know how that's changed.
It changed dramatically, and Wendy had to change her position totally.
So what caused that shift?
Common sense prevailing.
You got great answers. Common sense.
Prevailing, common sense prevailing, yeah.
Well, one of the things I get accused of from time to time too, and maybe you do too, because you're about similar ages as me, those old fogies don't know what they're talking about. So we're not going to do what they say because we're young and we're progressive and we know what to do, right?
I know certain people that are that way.
Well, I wish we had more time to talk. I'd like to have you come back sometime. We can talk more about Williamson Road and other parts of Roanoke.
Right, I'll work on my jokes too.
Okay. Oh, she may cut those things out. You better watch.
I'm not gonna cut my jokes on you.
We could probably go another 5 minutes and she just cut that part out, right? But anyway, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man and this takes a lot of time out of your schedule, but we'll try to do it again if you're available.
It suits me, it suits you.
Okay, thank you.